On to the Pommy and Oz channel. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Carl, thank you enough for your support. And we're here today to look at 5 lessons learned from the Collingwood loss, which I've slept on it a few times now. I've watched the game back a staggering 5 times. And although it's a bad loss, I think there's a lot in there that can kind of get us going in the terms of, if we learn from it, we can become better, well-rounded sides. So without any further ado, let's get into it. And the first lesson I wanted us to learn was our entries inside 50. Now, we know Carlton are obsessed with going down that right channel, right? And if teams learn to slow us down, if teams learn to stifle our ball movement, we quite often see the Blues look very laconic, and what they're looking for is that they're really banking on Charlie and Harry taking this mark. Now, this happened a few times. I could have had about 12 examples where Carlton have done the right thing. They've lost a turnover inside our forward 50 attacking, and the Pies have got it out to about halfway. Now, this happens quite a lot to us. We get it to halfway, and then it becomes a little bit stagnant, stuck in the mud. And you want to see how Collingwood just deal with it. So you can see here, they've done basically what Carlton do. They've set up right in the centre of their inside 50. They've set a little cluster. Mason Cox does the, I'm going to bomb it. And there's a runner short. So you see here, look, he switches it. But that is still there. Now, what you notice here is little peel-off moves. So Bo McCreary makes this move up here, right? And then Darcy Cameron. He literally lets Carlton get sucked in. He makes his first move towards the pack, and then he pivots back. And look, here he is. He takes the mark here. And watch Bo here. He works so hard that he ends up just kind of loose. So he's part of the marking contest. And you can see here, we're covering 2 players. He's trying to protect that run. And you can see here, look, Carlton have been sucked in. That they're expecting this to land here. And you can see that Collingwood are still teasing it. Their key forwards and their forwards have literally been part of the plan. And look, Bo McCreary is totally unmarked. He takes the mark. Now, I want to show you from a very similar point. Carlton do exactly the same thing. So we've gone for a switch. It started here. They went that way, no action. They came back in. And you can see here, they take the mark here just outside. Half back, and straight away, look, they've got the short little kick here. Now, next kick should be here. He ignores that lead, and if you look at how it works, right, it's going to be quite simple what Carlton should be doing, and that's he runs here, kick there, he runs here and gets into this zone here to confuse them, which should free up Durden as the next kick, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it goes to a long bomb at half forward, and Carlton are hoping the ball comes down. Now, there was 3 goals we scored from this situation, but we worked incredibly hard. And if you look back at the footage, the Blues were literally in overlaps everywhere. And that's the key for our inside 50s, overlap run. It's sometimes taking the short option. There was a few times, particularly around clearance and stoppage, they've got the runner, they've got the support that they need, and they choose to ignore it. But it's got to be quick. So when Harry has that mark there, he's got all the time in the world in his own mind, but it's a straightforward passage of play. Just bob it in front, and you've got to be calling it. And that's one thing that you saw Collingwood do quite a lot with their entries. They tease the long one, and they're looking for the short option. And the Blues bought into that quite a bit, and they bought into that quite a bit against Geelong. Tom Hawkins was having his hand up in the goal square. Jeremy Cameron takes a mark 55 out. And it's quite a common little chain of events when you watch the Blues. That's something that they've got to get a little bit smarter of. And I'd love to see Charlie Kerner have a bit more license to lead out. I'd like to see them swap Harry and Charlie. Harry's incredible at doing it, getting up the wing. I'd love to see Charlie have that license to roam. Now, the fact that they've got TDK there says that they could afford to do that now. Play 1 full forward, so you've got the target. And whichever you prefer, they quite often resort to TDK. You saw Pitternet in that example. It's usually the extra. I wouldn't mind seeing Charlie doing it because of the name Same with Harry. He drags a player out of position. That's definitely a point of contention there for the Blues to look. Next is stoppage and clearance. We've really gone back to this stoppage and clearance, and the footage is all over the internet of how Collingwood set up to negate this. Scott Pendlebury just trying to stop Mr. Cripps get into the contest. You saw Jack Crisp quite often just stopping players getting to the contest. And they create that one out between Dacos and Hewitt quite often around the stoppage, knowing Carlton would flip it out the back. And look, and there's quite a few bits in this game where you saw the players worked really hard to try and pivot back and give him an option. And it's interesting because Pitternet gets the clearance for the Blues quite a lot. And again, that plays into that game plan of getting the ball forward and trying to lock it in. That's all well and good in theory. Not every side is going to let you do that, particularly a Collingwood and a Geelong that are very intuitive on the ground ball. And this really exposed Carlton when they weren't in their ground ball zone. And it's interesting that the rotations the Blues used, particularly around stoppage and centre clearance, was very one-dimensional. And it was almost, I wouldn't say a point of arrogance, but it was almost like it will eventually work. It'll eventually work. And that's going to be something there that the Blues have got to look at, how opposition use these craftier players, particularly if you look at how Nick Dacos is used. They put him in the very defensive position, but they used him very aggressively. And that's for the Blues when we look at 0 to 4 rounds. We were looking for a more ostentatious method. It was a little bit more creative. There was a few handballs in that stoppage, in that clearance. There was a few runners. And that's why we all got excited, thinking if Sam Walsh comes here, that's going to be good. And it goes between being neutral to being very defensive very quickly and very back-footed and on the back foot. And when that happens, that's a real problem for the Blues because they get overrun. And you saw these sides swarmers. Geelong did it, and they're not particularly proficient that area. Collingwood, we know, are a very swarmy side. They're quite comfortable committing 9 extra players and then backing their system to get 9 back. And it's this natural overlap run. And in 0 to 4, you saw that natural overlap run. Now, I know we've lost Sard and players like that, but you've still got players like Chin Cotter, whose top speed is incredible, who could play that role. You've still got players like Jordan Boyd, who are crafty with the ball. And it's about changing them options. A few times this week, I looked at it and it was stuck in the mud. And that's something that the Blues have got to look for. Really trying to look to be a bit more dynamic. You've got to get the ball moving at pace. So, okay, saying Carlton are a slow side, but that's not going to change in season. And the chances of you going out in the draft and finding 6 players with lightning speed to play a game style like everyone else is nigh impossible. You've got to play a system that's to your strength. And I understand the clearance and centre dominance, but there is a happy medium I think we saw in 0 to 4, which can really unlock another avenue because the ball moves quicker than the player. And that's probably what we've got to focus on because you ain't bringing in Usain Bolt in round 8. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to play a system that suits your players. And that overlap run, that overload that the Blues created in 0 to 4 needs to come back with a bang very quickly. They've got the midfields to do it now. It's no excuse. It's really committing to it and being a little bit more committed to making a mistake. I think that's where sometimes the Blues get a bit flat-footed. They don't want to make a mistake. Working hard backline. I thought the backline was really interesting this week. I understand the premise of Lewis Young coming in because we know Cameron and Cox, they float forward and they're very tall. I heard the article today about Whittaker and people saying he's down on form. I don't think he's down on form. I just think that at this stage in Whittaker's career, we should be trying to utilise him a bit more dangerously. And I figured this was the game to do it. I don't mind Whittaker playing as the loose and waiting for Cameron and Co to come in. I would have liked to see a bit more ostentatious, bold movement in there. And McGovern and Sard have definitely been losses because they go through the corridor. They look to use it. And it's interesting. 0 to 4, Carlton were really heavy, the corridor. And now you can see the backline are looking for that safe option and it slows us down. When you play on the right wing and you're playing wing football and you look at teams that do exploit that wing, particularly West Coast Eagles when they had their good years, it's coming back in a switch with speed. Once it gets there to the safe area, they're looking to spread the opposition zones. And Carlton get really flat-footed. Once you slow us down, you know it's going to be long kicks and very direct. And at times, the Blues need to be more direct through the corridor and then less ball movement down the wing and look for them quick, insightful handballs. And it was interesting this week that the halfbacks didn't overlap the wings. They stayed where they were. It was a very defensive setup. And this is where I want Whittaker on the ball, because we know Whittaker genuinely is a quick decision maker when he's playing well. And it felt like at the back line this week, no one was willing to get the game going. There was a lot of them laconic type switches. You see it. Zach Williams did this about 6 or 7 times in the first quarter, where he gets the ball and he doesn't even look to take the first 10 meters. It's bob, bob, bomb, bob, bob, bomb. Where I want to say pop, 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 overlap, run. And that real quick movement. And we saw that from Sardi. And I think we've still got the players. I know people are saying they're missing, but people underestimate and sleep on how fast Cincotta is. People underestimate that Boyd is actually fairly mobile. There's still players down there that you can play it. For me, changing your system to the personnel that you don't have is disastrous. Now, I would love to see why we've gone back to the stoppage and clearance dominance. I think you're always going to be a good stoppage and clearance side with the players you've got. And that leads me on to the missed handballs. There was a lot of missed easy handballs, and that really gets Carlton's momentum. When they're playing this system, you've got to be handball heavy with the pace we've got. We've got elite engines. It's probably raw pace we don't have. And what you saw, particularly against GWS, is them handballs coming into it allow the players to move in a zone up the ground, which means they're there when it gets turned over. And see what we said about the inside 50s is really heavy maintenance on kicking a shit inside 50 very shallow and then relying on everyone to overlap and really create it hard and break the game open versus trying to get it moving and free flowing. And it's interesting because Chris Scott kind of gave you the issue with Carlton. He specifically said that in 6-6-6, Carlton are the most dangerous side because they've got one outs everywhere. And our forward line, look at Durden leading the way with marks on the lead. Look at Owies, his ability to get out the back. Very Bobby Hill-esque this week, where he was just kind of the poacher. And he hasn't got the skill of Bobby Hill, but he's got the intelligence, I'd say. He's got the intelligence to be where he needs to be. And he's definitely learnt the game well. Carlton don't create these natural one-on-ones because it's so slow. It's easy to overload that backline. And you watch any inside 50 that requires a little bit of ball movement that's not quick, Carlton are flooded in that area, and it becomes the same thing. It's that 40 to 30 kick with 8 people versus 4, and you're relying on Mackay and Curnow being who they are. And sometimes you've got to think, imagine if Curnow and Harry were Levi Casbolt. How would you work? You'd have to try and free them up with the speed of the ball movement. And it's very Voss used over-possessed in that ball movement. I agree with him. It was almost like the easy option to take away 5 disposals was there with a quick handball or that quick overlap run, because the overlap run's still there when we're moving in transition attacking-wise. It's just not utilised. Like that footage we showed you earlier, there's 2 players making leads where they're about 10 metres ahead of their opposite man. But we either use that loopy handball, which takes the initiative off, or it's a loopy handball, which takes the initiative off. It's got to be there, bang, kick to where they're running, poof. And that's something that definitely is structurally, for me, it's definitely something that's trained to be a bit slower. There's no way these players are noticing this in game and not going. And that leads me to my 5th, playing to your strengths. You want Charlie and Harry leading. They're very quick. They're very athletic. You want them leading. You want to be in a situation where the entries are a little bit lower, a little bit shorter, if anything, so they can run on. And it's amazing when they kick their goals from 6-6-6 play, how often you see this. They engage early, they're running out. I think Charlie particularly gets a little bit confused when there's 3 or 4 on there and he's still handling how to do that. Harry, you can see the benefit of him playing for so long in a rubbish side. He's like, this is just par for the course for me, bro. Don't know what you're crying about. It's really trying to create that. And the way that you get that is I'd like to see them inverse it. We have this saying in golf sometimes that people swing fast in the backswing and then de-accelerate through the ball. And I always say flip reverse it. Do you know what I mean? Slow backswing, accelerate through the ball, and change your mantra, change your logic of to swing fast, slow at the back, driving through the ball with speed. That's where I'm accelerating. My foot's on the accelerator once I've got myself in place. You load. You allow your backswing to load, and then you release that load through the ball. Count and go quick from the back line. Halfway line, it goes slow, and then we wonder. And I think that's playing to your strengths, because to me, I understand why Wazze's got this game plan that's built on pressure and built with speed, because it takes the players' time away in the terms of having to think about it and all the options, and they naturally take the options that are easy and presented to them. I understand that. And that, to me, is you've got to play to your strength. When you look on the ball this week, they took away your strength. You've got to start negating your strength. So is that Cripps resting forward? Kennedy should play. You bring him in. Is that Elijah and Cunningham go into the middle and you say, right, boys, you're going to get out-muscled, outpace them? That is definitely something the Blues have got to focus on, trying to change them options, because option A isn't always going to work, and that is quite an apparent option. Cripps bursts through the contest, handballs it out to Hewitt. Hewitt gives a daisy kick to Walsh, Chera, and they spread from there via hand and foot. That is plan A. Plan B needs to be a little bit more nuanced, because at the moment, plan B is, okay, see plan A, get it forward, we'll smother it. And that works from 6-6-6, you're one out. But the problem is when that comes into your organic game, you're committing a lot of men forward that if they don't win the ground ball, you see what happens. Them short kicks cut through the lines, or even worse, you slow them down, and then you succumb to the easy short options, which we need ourselves. We need them short options. You can set traps, and that was something we saw in round 0 to 4, where Charlie and Harry looked like they were about to burst games open at any time, because there was a lot of dummy leads. There was a lot of movement forward. And now it's becoming it's seeping in. The predictability at times, to me, seeps into the players, that they know it's going to go halfway between the goal square and the arc of the 50. They know it. So it's funny. Even some of the exits, you see the Blues already set up for that. And I would say playing to your strength is to create just natural one-on-ones and be like, okay, we're going to spread. We're not going to let you know where this is going. We're going to have options everywhere. I'm going to play Charlie on the left wing. I'm going to play Harry on the right wing. Or is that TDK on the left wing, Harry on the right wing, Charlie in the goal square? And I'm going to spread the play. I'm going to spread the play, and we're going to give ourselves the options. And then you create all that beautiful space in behind. You saw that's what happens in Carlton defending transition. The space in behind them lines, because they're willing to take that handball through traffic. And that's how the fundamentals of how you beat these forward presses. You've got to face it. And that's why teams have had success against us, particularly Adelaide, particularly Geelong. They face the forward press. They're not intimidated by it. GWS got a bit intimidated by it, but you saw Collingwood, they were like, okay, cool. Everyone does this to us. They try and encourage us to overuse it in the back line. We just take it on. And although it's been quite critical, this video, I don't think it's something that I haven't, A, seen them do, and B, something that's very easy to implement. It's about having the bravery. And I understand in-game it's quite tough sometimes. It is a tough sport to play. Any sport, elite level is. But they're the 5 takeouts from this game. Let me know yours and how you would do it. I do expect to see some personnel changes this week. I think Jack Martin would help that, because he naturally leads awkwardly, which I feel like the players genuinely look for. But there is some options there for the Blues. And it's not all doom and gloom. They can rectify this, and they've done it before. And I'm looking forward to seeing these next 2 weeks, because you've got some great tests. You've got Melbourne that don't care about Carlton's stoppage and clearance dominance. They will front it up. And then you've got Sydney, who love a back half slingshot. So really exciting. Let me know what you think, much, everyone. Peace, love, and light. Pom out.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad.